Chapter 121 Treasure Within, Breaking Through the Four Directions Town General. Afterward, Chumo tested the spatial lock again. Only his mind moved. The space around them then steeply began to stagnate and became heavy. According to Chumo's prediction, ordinary Jin General level martial artists would be unable to move, and peak Jin General martial artists would have to be greatly slowed down. Even a rank 6 ferocious beast would have to be affected in some way. Dissipate. After obtaining the result, Chumo cancelled the spatial lock and a smile appeared on his face. With these two added abilities, it was enough to make him even more powerful, even if he was to face rank 6 ferocious beasts as well as 8 wastelands venerable level powerhouses, he would have the power to fight. Not so much that you can't fight back. Keep gathering. Resisting his excitement, Chumo continued to start collecting. Capture successful. Obtaining the blood of the 5th level beast, the broken white ferret. Just after obtaining a portion of Class 5 fierce beast essence blood, it showed that it was unable to continue collecting. Chummer didn't care either. After loading it into his carry-on space, he intended to leave. But just as he was walking away, Chumo scanned the corpse of this broken white ferret again, only to see that even though it was collapsed on the ground, its body was slightly presenting an appearance of climbing forward. More importantly, it was dead, but its eyes were still staring straight ahead. Until it died, it looked into the depths of the cave. Could it be that there was something in there that it was very attached to? Chumo's heart fluttered. Then it took a step forward. After a few hundred meters, Chumhum came to the very inside. He saw that there was actually a 10-foot-sized beast nest in front of him, with a silver-colored ferocious beast egg on top of it. Could it be that this egg is the child of that broken white ferret? Chumo was shocked in his heart, but then a flash of surprise immediately followed. The Skybreaker White Weasel possessed a spatial talent bloodline, and although the level of spatial talent mastered by each of them varied, but as a grade 5 fierce beast that was treated generously, it was assumed that the qualifications of the Skybreaker White Weasel beast pet that could be birthed from this egg wouldn't be too low either. If it could be nurtured properly, it might be able to grow into a very powerful beast pet in the future. Chumo walked up and held the egg in his hand, then he could feel a strong vitality coming from inside. It was obvious that it was not far from the time when it would hatch out. Very happily, he put it into his spirit beast pouch and instructed the treasure-seeking bird and little crow to take good care of it, and then Chumo set his eyes on the nest. Compared to the broken white weasel egg, this beast nest, perhaps, was the greatest treasure. This place was at most a few hundred meters away from the corpse of the broken white weasel, and with his spatial perception ability, it was reasonable to say that he could completely detect that there was a ferocious beast egg here, but in perception, there is no impression. This is obviously somewhat unusual. Thinking so, Chumo walked to the side of the beast's nest, squatted down, and carefully surveyed it. At first glance, it was seen to be plain in appearance, even appearing a bit dated. But when Chumo touched it, he realized that the surface of this beast's nest looked rough and old, but in reality, it was delicate and smooth, and even carried a warmth. Shaped like a disc, dark in color, the material is indistinguishable, touching like porcelain and jade. The body is all natural, the finger flicked, and a long and clear sound was emitted. Chummer froze. It was then pulled straight out and propped up in his hand. In an instant, a heavy pressure struck, causing Chumo's arm to press down a few points. This is extremely scary. Now that Chumo had the power of 1,200 elephants, even a large mountain could be easily lifted by him. And a mere 10-foot-sized disc could actually make him feel heavy? Chumo's face revealed a look of astonishment and uncertainty. After thinking about it, he slowly instilled some yuan power into it. Boom! Along with the yuan power entering, in an instant, this item that was shaped like a jade disc, as if water had fallen from a stone, finally revealed its true appearance. A long vicissitude, as if through countless years of precipitation of the ancient, seemed to have crossed the infinite time, came to him the longevity of its time. It made Chumo think for a moment of the Divine Sword Sect's secret place that he had previously visited. It is also at least thousands of years old there. However, the aura that existed, compared to this jade disk in front of him, was small and could not be compared at all. After countless years, it's still so well preserved, not even half attenuated by its divinity. What kind of exotic treasure is this? Chumo's heart was shaken. Along with him pouring yuan qi into it, he also figured out how this treasure was able to remain undetected by his spatial perception. Convergence. All ancient treasures have spirituality, and in order to prevent them from being discovered, they will usually take the initiative to converge their divine aura and remain unnoticed. But even more introverted, Chu Mo had never heard of an exotic treasure that could fool spatial perception. This time, it's really picked up a treasure. Although Chu Mo did not yet know what effect this treasure had. But he could be sure that it was definitely an extraordinary treasure. Storing it carefully in his carry-on space, he intended to wait until later to check it out. After doing this, Chu Mo looked around and realized that there was nothing else worth paying attention to when he turned to leave. The spatial talent has been raised to high. The power has also reached 1,200 elephant power. So what's next? It's just a closed door, all-out cultivation. Strive to break through to the 4 directions town general level before the secret realm ends. Under the night. The stars twinkle, a round of bright moon hangs high in the sky, the roar of some ferocious beasts comes vaguely from the dense forest, the breeze blows, the leaves flutter, and a rustling sound is emitted. Deep in the dense forest. There was an extremely large tree, a kind of purple-colored vine twisting and growing upwards, hundreds of meters long. Under the big tree. Holding the autumn killing blade, Chu Mo gently slashed through the vines, and immediately, a golden liquid with a pure aura seeped out from the cut. This was the spiritual liquid produced by the purple mist vine, possessing extremely pure energy that could accelerate a martial artist's cultivation speed. Chu Mo coated his entire body with it, and then took out the fierce beast essence blood of the broken white weasel. Gulp. Drink it in one gulp. Instantly, a pure and majestic energy spread from his throat and flowed through his entire body, nourishing his limbs and bones in the meantime. The purple mist vine's spiritual liquid also began to exert its effect, a coolness spread throughout the body, causing the qi and blood in the body to become active for it. Cultivate. Chu Mo seized the time and immediately began to execute the green cloud yuan power body, forging secret art. In a flash. Then 15 days had passed. During these 15 days, Chu Mo had been in the middle of cultivation without the slightest rest. And his strength was growing by leaps and bounds, growing by 800 elephants once again in the span of these 10 days. It made him powerful, reaching a full 2,000 elephant strength. It wasn't until this step that Chu Mo realized that he was no longer able to grow in strength. He understood that this was already at the clan master limit. For ordinary patriarchs, 200 elephants of power is the limit, whereas I have 10 times more power than them, which represents a much stronger base. Accordingly, the strength after the breakthrough will definitely be even more terrifying. And now, since we have reached our limit, we will directly break through on this. Step into the level of a town general. Chu Mo opened his eyes and a flash of essence appeared in his eyes. Breaking through from the sovereign master to the 4 directions Jin general realm was a transcendent step for a martial artist. In the meantime, there will be a total transformation of the body. Therefore, if a Zhongshe powerhouse wanted to take the step to become a Jin general, he needed to break and then stand up, which was fraught with dangers, and the slightest mishap would lead to death. Therefore, the reason why many sect masters stayed at the peak of sect masters for their entire lives was partly because they didn't have enough talent to be able to continue climbing in. And the other side is because of the fear of failing to advance, thus leading to a great loss of strength or even death. But this was naturally not a problem for Chu Mo. He possessed a transcendent grade undying thunder body and had many talents in his possession. From the time he was a martial artist, he broke the limits of his physical body, and when he stepped into the clan master, he forged a flawless Dao foundation. Such a thick Dao foundation was unrivaled. Inevitably, the breakthrough will be successful. Of course. More importantly, it was that Chu Mo possessed an incomparably confident heart of a strong man. The Four Directions Town General is just my first step to the top of the mountain. Shall it be a hindrance to me? Read this. Chu Mo directly took out 10 portions of ferocious beast blood from within his carry-on space, then drank it in one gulp. Shasta. Berserk energy surged into the body. Break. Chu Mo operated the green cloud Yuan power body forging secret art, guiding the majestic Yuan power and chi and blood towards the realm shackles. Along with him starting to impact the realm shackles, all the 5 viscera and 6 bowels within his body instantly seemed to be ignited, emitting a scorching hot aura. The trees around them shriveled up in an instant, and then unexpectedly began to dry up one after another, as if they had been in a drought for hundreds of years. In the meantime, Chu Mo's body also issued a crackling sound, which was his body in metamorphosis. Countless cells were frantically metabolizing, causing him to be like a snake molting its skin, flesh, bones, and even meridians on his body, which were constantly sublimating. Fade the original fleshly mortal body a little bit. Boom. Chu Mo felt that the chi and blood and Yuan power in his body were also stirring with it, as if it was a volcano erupting like a crazy surge, and one meridian in his entire body bulged up, as intricate as an old tree coiling its roots. One eye radiated redness. A terrifying stream of air rushed out from the pores of his entire body. I don't know how much time has passed. Chu Mo vaguely heard a pop sound, as if some kind of barrier had been shattered, and in an instant, it was as if he had jumped out of the boundaries of heaven and earth. His vision was infinitely elevated, and his body was suddenly much lighter. In the meantime, he could feel a brand new energy being nurtured within his body. Unlike the increase in strength, this was the sublimation of the level of life. When Chu Mo looked inside his entire body, he realized that his heartbeat had become even more violent. The drumming was deafening. And with the constant beating of the heart, among the veins, the blood, which was originally red, began to gradually transform into a light golden color, containing a terrifying ability. Blood becomes pale gold, and the town will become itself. Chapter 122 Strength Surge, Leaving the Secret Realm. The moment the light golden blood appeared, it also meant that Chu Mo had truly stepped over the most dangerous hurdle. What follows is a surge in strength. Boom. Between heaven and earth, countless Yuan Qi suddenly converged towards Chu Mo. The range rippled for 100 miles around, and the infinite Yuan Qi formed a funnel that poured towards Chu Mo, accelerating the transformation of the blood within his body, and at the same time, quenching his 5 viscera and 6 bowels. Every moment Chu Mo could feel the evolution of his body. Strength was surging crazily, and vitality was rising at a rate visible to the naked eye. I don't know how much time has passed. The metamorphosis of life was finally complete, and the blood was all transformed into a light golden color. It is also at this moment Chu Mo suddenly opened his eyes, and 2 beams of terrifying golden light shot out from within his eyes. The body also slowly floated up from the ground and hovered in midair. A head of dark hair that fluttered in the wind. If one looked closely, one could see that there were strands of golden light flowing through the hair. In the meantime, his entire body exuded a sacred and majestic power that seemed to be able to suppress everything. Above the martial arts master, there are the 4 Directions Town Generals. They were high above the ground, guarding a side of the earth, immortal gods in the eyes of mortals, and transcendent existences in the eyes of martial artists. Going from a martial arts master to a 4 Directions Town General was like a carp leaping over the Dragon Gate. Once one stepped over it, one would no longer be immortal. Being able to have a lifespan of 300 years, flying through the sky and crossing the vault of heaven, doing things that ordinary people could not imagine. But because the metamorphosis is so great, it's not easy to move past it. Countless patriarchs were stuck in this realm, and it was difficult for them to advance an inch in their lives. And now, Chu Mo, however, entered this realm with ease. Feeling the surging power within his body, Chu Mo slowly closed his eyes and began to experience his surging strength. The first is vitality. Under normal circumstances, a Jin general level martial artist would have a lifespan of around 300 to 350 years at most. Instead, Chuemo realized that he had a lifespan of about 700 years. It was 300 to 400 years of longevity, more than an ordinary Jin general martial artist. Beyond that is the growth in power. When a martial artist stepped from Zongshi into Jin general, there would be a sudden increase in strength, and according to the talent of the martial artist, there would be an instant increase in strength ranging from 100 elephants to 3,000 elephants. And Trummer. Try how strong I am now. Chuemo arrived in front of a large mountain, and with a thought, he directly levitated into midair. Then running his chi and blood, he directly punched over boom. Along with a punch, a terrifying fist force directly blasted out, breaking through the void and directly smashing into the large mountain. Only a violent explosion could be heard, and the entire mountain was directly collapsed by Chuemo's punch, with countless pieces of earth, stone, and wood crumbling in all directions. 9,000 elephant power. Feeling his power, Chuemo slowly spat out a number. The strength of the physical body alone had reached 9,000 elephant strength. This also meant that he had instantly soared by 7,000 elephants of power when he broke through from the peak of Zongshi to the level of Jin General. One must know that the limit power of a Jin General powerhouse was only 20,000 elephant power, while Chuemo had only just broken through and already possessed 9,000 elephant power. It was stronger than any ordinary martial artist in the middle Jin General realm. With such an undercurrent, other than Chuemo, in the entire Jinling Great Base, I'm afraid that they wouldn't be able to find a second person. More importantly, I also broke the physical body extreme realm once, causing the power increase to reach as much as 200 times. With the power of 9,000 elephants in my physical body, under 200 times increase, it's enough to sweep the Jin General realm. Even if it's an ordinary 8 Desolate Exalted, I'm afraid it's not a match for me. But if we meet a senior 8 Desolate Exalted one, I'm afraid we're still a bit short. Chummer murmured. The gap between each realm wasn't too big before a martial artist was a martial grandmaster. However, starting from the sovereign to the four-square town general, the gap between each realm had a huge chasm, and as the strength rose, the chasm grew bigger and bigger. A powerhouse at the level of the 8 Wastelands Exalted One was countless times more terrifying than the Four Directions Town General. If Chuemo hadn't broken the physical body extreme realm once and possessed so many talents in his body, it would be delusional to want to defeat the 8 Desolate Exalted One with the strength of a Jin General. The road of martial arts is a long way to go. Although some achievements have been made, it is not yet time to be complacent. Letting out a long breath, Chuemo secretly encouraged himself in his heart, counting the days. There are still 3 days until the opening of the secret realm. Take this opportunity to consolidate your realm in seclusion. Make up your mind. Chuemo then fell into seclusion once again. 3 days later, the sun rose. A violent tremor suddenly came from within the calm secret realm, and a massive crack split open near the Martial Dao Tower. Along with this crack, the martial artists from various forces converged and prepared to leave. Nearly 2 months in the secret realm, it's finally over. On a large tree, Chuemo also woke up from his seclusion, feeling the sun shining warmly on his body. He couldn't help but let out a long breath and muttered to himself. Having said that, the entire person flew up into midair, his body resembling electricity, and flew towards the crack. In the meantime, the valley beyond the rift. The various forces of the Jinling Great Base had also sent their representatives, and at this moment, they had also all arrived at the entrance of the rift, waiting for the return of their own trial martial artists. The 4 families. The Arraymasters Association. Jade Business Alliance. The martial artists of each power had a look of anticipation on their faces. The little leaf-green sky mysterious realm contained countless heavenly treasures inside, and every time it opened, martial artists from various families would gain great benefits after entering, and there was no lack of ordinary martial artists who went in and came out as heavenly prides sure. These are only small probabilities. What most concerned the various forces was whether their heavenly pride martial artists had allowed their strength to grow in there, and how many resources they had gotten. In this one, the one who is most looking forward to it is also the Sioux family. At this moment, on the Sioux family's flying boat, an old man in fancy clothes was looking at the crack with unblinking eyes, with undisguised excitement and anticipation in his heart. He was the second elder of the Sioux clan, named Sioux Zhan, with the cultivation of a peach in general. Belongs to Sioux Lang's inner circle. Thus the matter of the relics in the secret realm was also known to him, and thus he was sent here to be responsible for receiving Sioux Tian according to what the family had said, that one relic hides very important treasures as well as countless resources. If I can get my hands on it, my Sioux family will be able to sweep away the decline and become the head of the 4 great families, and even stand at the top of the entire Jinling Great Base. When that time comes. Think about it. Su Zhan couldn't help but glance at the direction where the Jade Merchant Alliance was located, as well as the other major forces, and let out a soft cold snort. The mind speaks for itself. I really don't know what kind of treasure it will be, he thought with considerable anticipation in his mind. And just as Su Zhan's mind was turning, the crack began to ripple at that moment. Subsequently, a single martial artist stepped out from it. As soon as these people came out, they immediately headed in the direction of their own forces before they were quickly placed within the flying boats. They had just come out of the rift, and each of them could be carrying heavy treasures, so they had to be protected immediately to prevent accidents. Mo Shanshan also quickly came out of the crack with a group of Merchant Alliance martial artists. Swish! A large group of Merchant Alliance martial artists immediately rushed over and protected Mo Shanshan, escorting her to the flying boat. Sam, were you hurt in the crack? At this point, a middle-aged looking man who bore a slight resemblance to Mo Shanshan came before him and opened his mouth. Dad, I'm fine. Seeing this person, Mo Shanshan immediately shouted, then said with a smile, Dad, this time I got a very important treasure in the secret realm, guess what it is? She said with a mischievous smile. You this girl, with Dad still selling, ah. Say, what is a good treasure? Mo Shanshan's father, Mo Yangon, said with a smile, Dragon's Bane flower. Moxan spoke directly. What? Mo Yangon was instantly shocked. He looked at Mo Shanshan and wanted to say something, but opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Eventually, he also just touched Mo Shanshan's hair and sighed, Silly girl, why do you have to fight so hard? The Dragon's Bane flower was able to allow general-level martial artists to increase their chances of stepping into the 8 desolate exalted realm, and it could also make up for the route that had failed at all, so it could be considered to be very precious. Such a treasure would inevitably be guarded by a powerful ferocious beast. Instead, Mo Shanshan helped him get it back, and must have paid a small price. How does that make him feel as a father? Moxan and her own father made small talk for a while longer. By this time, the martial artists from the various forces had pretty much come out. And the space rift was about to close. Mo Shanshan's eyes looked to survey the surroundings, but she did not find Chumo's figure. The secret realm is about to close, why hasn't Chumo come out yet? Is it hard to believe that he had some kind of accident? She was a little anxious inside. Although with Chumo's strength, it was basically very difficult for danger to arise within the secret territory, but fear not, fear not. If there was really an accident, or if he was held back by something and couldn't get away, it would be bad if he waited for the secret realm to close. Good on. What Moxan feared did not happen. Seeing that the secret realm was about to close. At that moment, a ripple suddenly flashed at the crack, and immediately a figure walked out from it. It was certainly none other than Chumo. Chumo, you finally came out. Mo Shanshan immediately greeted her, but immediately after, she seemed to sense something, her face with surprise and amazement, subconsciously said, You broke through the Jin general realm? Yes. Chummer said with a smile. Receiving Chumo's definite reply, a shocked expression appeared on Mo Shanshan's face. Chumo had just arrived at the Jinling Great Base, and at that time, he was still only a peak martial master. And nowadays, it had only been less than 5 months, and he had crossed over the sovereign and entered the Four Directions Shin General realm. What kind of demonic natural talent is this? Mo Shanshan's entire body froze in place, her heart setting off waves of shock. And compared to her, the one whose heart was even more horrified was Su Zhen. Where are the children of our Su family? Why hasn't anyone come out until now? Chapter 123 Seizure of Su Zhen, returning to the base. Xiao Jin couldn't help but shout out originally, as he looked at one martial artist after another coming out of the secret realm, but not a single figure of the Su family's martial artists could be seen. Su Zhen's face gradually became a bit ugly. And over time, when he saw that the crack was about to close, but he still didn't see any Su clan martial artists, he finally couldn't sit still. The anticipation on his face had disappeared and was replaced by endless panic. More than 100 martial artists, all of them were at the peak level of Zhongshu or above, and among them, there were nearly 10 strong people at the level of Jin generals who hadn't come out at all. Even his son Su Tian, who he had high hopes for, was nowhere to be seen. That would be too weird. Although the secret territory was full of crises, and every time it opened, a large number of martial artists would fall in it. However, there had never been a situation where all the martial artists sent by a certain major power had been wiped out. What the hell is going on here? Some uneasiness gradually arose in his heart, and some sweat began to slightly seep out from his forehead and the scene. It has also been noticed by other forces. All of them were betting on strange gazes. Some forces even privately questioned their own family's martial artists about what was going on. However, these martial artists who had entered the secret realm all shook their heads, stating that they had not seen it. Buzz. At this point, the spatial rift began to shake and ripple, apparently on the verge of closing. Su Zhen stared at the crack with a deadly gaze, hoping to see a miracle come out. But when the crack snapped shut completely, he didn't see anyone come out after all. No way, that's not true. How could even one of my Su family's martial artists not come out? It must be that someone sneak attacked my Su family's martial artists, otherwise how could all of my Su family's martial artists be wiped out? A flash of despair appeared on his face, almost in disbelief. This was more than 100 martial artists above the level of Zhongshu. All of them were the elite of the Su family, and there was also his son Su Tian inside, but actually none of them had come out. This loss was too great a blow to the Su family. Enough to affect the family for the next few decades. There would be a break in martial artists. Su Zhen could imagine that if the news were to be sent back, it would certainly cause the family to set off a wave of shock. Brother Su, there's no need to be too upset. Maybe the Su clan's martial artists are just being held within the secret realm because of something big deal. When the secret realm opens in 10 years, maybe they'll be able to come out. At this point, a representative of a family that had befriended the Su family in the past walked over and comforted. Yes, it's a blessing in disguise. Perhaps 10 years from now, when the secret realm opens, all these martial artists will have stepped into the Jin generals, or even the 8 Wastelands honored ones. Another representative of a family that had some grudges with the Su family also said with a smile. Though it is persuasive. But no matter how you listen to it, you can feel a touch of gloating in the words. To be able to be held back and not be able to get away for the time being meant that it was bound to be in danger, and even if the secret realm opened 10 years later and these Su family martial artists could still walk out, they would definitely suffer heavy losses within the Jinling Big Base. Although the major forces cooperated, they also had private rivalries. Now that he saw such a large loss in the Su family, his heart was naturally stealing joy. None of the Su family's martial artists have come out. Chu Mo, do you know what happened? Mo Shanshan asked with some curiosity. Chu Mo feigned ignorance and said, I'm not sure. Words. Mo Shanshan nodded and wasn't talking. She had only casually mentioned it when she questioned Chu Mo, not even expecting Chu Mo to know what happened to the Su clan's martial artists. As for whether or not the death of the Su family's martial artist would be the work of Chu Mo, she could think of even less. Chumo's strength was powerful though. But in Mo Shanshan's thought, it couldn't deal with hundreds of peak Zhongsher and several Jin general level martial artists. Therefore, she guessed, maybe it's just that they've encountered some powerful ferocious beasts, or gotten into some dangerous situation. Serves you right. On weekdays in the base, it's their Su family's martial artists who are the most domineering, and now they deserve what they get. There was some pleasure in the words. Chumo also nodded his head in deep agreement. But after such a big incident with the Su family this time, the base is probably going to be in a mess again next. Especially you, and the Su family already have a grudge. Although you are the guest secretary of my merchant alliance, the Su family is not too daring to make a move against you, but I am afraid that under the heartlessness of their heart, they will dare to do anything. So be careful when we get back to the base. Mo Shanshan admonished. I understand. Chummer said with a nod. With so many people dead in the Su family, they must find the real culprits to take revenge. Though he could be sure that no one had found out that he had killed him. But he himself had made a grudge against the Su family in the base, and if the other side couldn't find the murderer, they might take it out on him. So it's better to be careful. After returning to the base, dive into cultivation, and when your strength advances one level further, you'll overthrow the Su family. Chumo thought darkly. The two of them looked at each other for a while, then Mo Shanshan brought Chumo back into the flying boat, ready to leave and return to the base however. Right about this time, Su Zhan, who was in a frenzy, suddenly saw Chumo, who was preparing to leave, and instantly his face turned livid, roaring, Chumo! You did it, didn't you? It must have been you who secretly attacked my Su clan's martial artists, causing them to fall into danger. Chumo, you've repeatedly provoked my Su family, this is looking for death. He pointed at Chumo, his face full of anger. Su Tian and the others entered the secret realm this time to search for the relics, and secondly, they were preparing to crush Chumo, a mole cricket, to death in the secret realm. But now that Chumo had come out unharmed, while Su Tian and the others were caught up in it, it undoubtedly meant that their original plan had failed. In Su Zhan's thought, none of the Su family martial artists had come out, and they were bound to be inextricably linked to Chumo. Just the other martial artists from various other forces heard this, but they all looked a bit puzzled. Regarding the feud between Chumo and the Su family, they were more or less aware of it. But this time when more than 100 martial artists from the Su family were trapped in the secret realm, perhaps there was indeed something strange in it, but it was never something that a single Chumo could do no matter what. He was only at the cultivation level of a Four Directions town general, so it was hard to believe that he could still kill over 100 martial artists who were at the very least at the peak of Zhongsher. No doubt about it. Su Zhan's words were really a bit too far-fetched. Bloodshed. Chumo is just an ordinary martial artist, how could he kill so many of you? In my opinion, maybe it was your Su clan's martial artist who discovered some great opportunity and fell into it out of greed, only to end up dumping the pot on Chumo's head. How shameless. Mo Shanshan loudly retorted as the other forces listened, they all subconsciously nodded their heads. As for Xiao Jin, hearing Mo Shanshan's casual words actually approaching the truth, he was instantly shocked in his heart. It was true that their family's martial artists were heading to a place of great opportunity, but how could this be said in public? Have a mind to retort. But looking at the skeptical faces of the other major powers, Su Zhan also knew that there was no point in saying more. Thus just glaring fiercely at Chumo, he dropped a sentence, just you wait, the Su family will never let you go. Having said that, then he hurriedly returned to the flying boat and quickly left. This time, when such a big thing happened to the Su family, he had to rush back as soon as possible to discuss it with the family head. Let's go. Mo Shanshan snorted coldly and led Chumo onto the flying boat. In no time at all, it was out of here. As for the other major forces, they all left in flying boats one after another. But the forces were chatting privately as they left. With such a big loss in the Su family this time, I guess it's going to be uneventful in the base for the rest of the year. Especially that Jade Merchant Alliance's guest secretary Chu Mo. Right now he's being targeted by the Su family, so I guess he's going to be finished. It can't be, can it? Isn't Chu Mo a guest secretary of the Merchant Alliance? I think the talent should be good, so the Merchant Alliance will probably try to protect it. What can be done with forceful protection? Could it be that the Merchant Alliance will still protect Chu Mo throughout the day? The Su family is not a family that can be easily messed with. If they really go crazy, they will definitely take Chu Mo to vent their anger. If Chu Mo dies, the Merchant Alliance won't even go to war with the Su clan over him. It's a pity that such a heavenly pride. Looking at his appearance, he's only in his 20s, and he's already a Four Directions Shin general. Maybe in the future he'll be able to step into the Eight Wastelands venerable realm. Yes. Whether or not he can survive this time depends on his destiny. Chu Mo, the Su family has set their eyes on you. Why don't you move to the Merchant Alliance's headquarters within this period of time? At the headquarters, the Su family's martial artists won't dare to be reckless. On the flying boat, Mo Shanshan said to Chu Mo with some concern. Next to him, Mo Yangon also nodded his head and said, Shanshan is right, you can move to the headquarters of the Merchant Alliance to prevent retaliation by the Su family. From Mo Shanshan's mouth, Mo Yangon also knew that she was able to get the dragonine flower this time, and Chu Mo had put in quite a bit of effort, so he was very appreciative of it. Plus, knowing your daughter is like knowing your father. Shanshan is usually very high and cold to outsiders, only in front of Chu Mo is very gentle. Maybe there is a good feeling in its heart. As for Chu Mo, he had good talent, and his looks and temperament were both first-rate, making him a good match for Shanshan. He would be happy to see it really lead to good things in the future. Thank you, Senior Mo and Shanshan, for your kind words, but moving to the headquarters is not necessary. I have a way to deal with the Su family's counterattack. Trummer shook his head and refused. Undeniable. It would indeed be safer to move to the headquarters of the Jade Merchant Union. But is this a permanent solution? He couldn't always hide under the shelter of the Jade Merchant Alliance. More to the point, he had too many secrets with him, and being in someone else's territory would increase the risk of exposure. As for the Su family's backlash, if it was before entering the secret realm, he would have been a bit worried. But now that he had stepped into the realm of the Four Directions Shin general, his strength had changed drastically, and even an Eight Wastelands exalt would be able to subdue him. If the Su family didn't come looking for trouble, it would still allow them to live for a while longer. If they dared to come, they would let the Su family know what it meant to regret. Seeing Chumhum refused, Mo Yangon and Mo Shanshan still wanted to be persuasive, but looking at Chu Mo's determined face, they could only give up. However, Mo Shanshan still urged Chu Mo to be careful. Chummer agreed with himself. No words on the way. It was soon back inside the large base in Jinling. Chu Mo bid farewell to Mo Shanshan and the others, and then walked towards his home. Chapter 124, My Only Husband in This Life, Su Lang Schemes. The dining room table. While eating his meal, Chu Mo talked to Chen Shiwei about his experience in the secret realm, while Chen Shiwei listened while the other side of her eyes looked at Chu Mo without blinking, her face full of a delighted expression. The 2 months that Chumo had been away had left her pining and incredibly worried. It was good that he came back safely, and he also obtained a great chance to smoothly step into the Four Directions Shin general realm. Finish eating. The two did not cultivate but instead chatted idly. By the way, I gave you some gifts. While chatting, Chu Mo suddenly remembered something and said with a smile. What gift? Chen Shiwei asked with some curiosity. The words just came out of her mouth. It was then that Chu Mo's palm gently stroked on the table, and then 3 more items appeared. A sword, a piece of ice crystal, a jade book. The spirit on the sword is extraordinary, the sharpness of the sword, with a cold frosty murderous intent. At a glance, it is known that it is not a mortal product. And on top of the ice crystal, there is a complicated and mysterious pattern. At a glance, as if intuitive heaven and earth to the truth, the law of the mystery in general, people are trapped in it, it is difficult to extricate themselves. As for the last jade book, although Chen Shiwei had yet to see what was recorded inside, at this moment, just from the aura that flowed from the jade book, it allowed her to perceive that what was recorded within the jade book was extraordinary. Fruity, this sword is called Condensed Frost, ranked at the 6th rank level, and is a genus of spirit weapons. This jade book was obtained by me within one of the relics in the secret realm. It's a secret martial arts book. It's the town secret technique of that relic's clan, called the Pouring Sky Sword Codex, the power of which is comparable to even a gold-level martial arts skill. As for this piece of ice crystal, is an ancient treasure, containing the supreme principle of heaven and earth. In the past micro, you had broken the limit of the physical body when you were a martial artist, and now you are already in the late stage of the martial artist, and you are about to reach the peak, and then you can cultivate the attraction of the spirit art to subdue this ice crystal, and cast the Immaculate Da Foundation, and enter into the realm of the Zongshi. Saying that, Chu Mo pushed the 3 objects towards the direction of Chen Shiwei. Listening to Chu Mo's words, Chen Shiwei's beautiful eyes rounded and revealed an unbelievable expression. She had naturally heard of the genus Spirit Soldier. It was a weapon that was above the 5th rank and had birthed spirituality. Any spirit soldier was very precious, and even the 8 Desolate Exalted were hard to obtain. The value of the Pouring Sky Sword Codex, which was comparable to a gold-level martial skill, was even more precious. As for this piece of ice crystal, although he didn't know what its origin was, but just by looking at the aura emanating from it, he knew it was extraordinary. More importantly, she could feel her body craving for this ice crystal, which was obviously very suitable for her spirit-inducing object. 3 treasures. Any one of them circulating out would be enough to make the many forces in the entire Jinling Great Base go crazy. But now, it was silently placed in front of her. This gave Chen Shiwei a feeling of unreality. With great perseverance, she moved her gaze away from these 3 items, looked at Chu Mo, and spoke, "These are too precious. I can't take them. Although these things are precious, they are all outside of my body, and with my current strength, I don't need them anymore. Instead of keeping it, it's better for you to enhance your strength." Speaking of which, Chu Mo paused, and then said, "What's more, when I was depressed, you have been unfailingly patient with me, and at that time I already regarded you as the closest person in my life. And now, you and I are not yet married, but in my heart you are already my wife. If you still think of me as a companion, do not refuse." Chen Shiwei had never thought that Chu Mo would actually say such words directly. For a moment she blushed a little. But, however, she did not dodge. Instead she looked at Chu Mo and said solemnly, "In my heart, you are also already my only husband in this life." "That's more like it," Chummer said with a smile. The window dressing was lifted and the 2 got closer together next. Letting Chen Shiwei accept these 3 things, the 2 of them then sat down together again on the chairs in the courtyard to chat. Without realizing it, the 2 had embraced each other. It was getting late and the setting sun was shining in the evening sun. Reflecting on Chen Shiwei and Chu Mo's bodies, it was as if a hazy veil had been cast over them. The entire courtyard, too, seemed to have become dreamlike. Ugh! Bird abuse! A tree off to the side. Dale couldn't help but sigh out with emotion, his words full of sourness. Under the tree. Tianpeng also nodded approvingly. "Beaner." Dale glanced at his mouth, then once again looked at Chu Mo with envy in his eyes. "Sweet love, when will it be my turn, Dale?" "The moon is like water." Chumo arrived on the rooftop of the villa. The night breeze was a little cool, but pleasant. Immersed in this night wind, Chumo's heart tumbled. Chen Shiwei's natural ability is inherently extraordinary. It was just a bit less than a true heavenly pride yet. But she has a resolute mind and perseverance, and now with these 3 things to add, to make up for the last bit of her shortcomings, she will certainly soar into the sky and become the most top-notch heavenly pride. Moving into the 8 Desolate Exalted in the future was no longer a problem. Thinking of this, Chu Mo felt some relief in his heart, but he then thought of the Su family again. It was almost to the point of a graphic conflict between him and the Su family. Only by decapitating the other party would he be able to go down peacefully in the Jinling Great Base. Otherwise, he would always need to be wary of the Su family's retaliation. Nowadays, although I have stepped into the Four Directions Shin general realm and my strength has grown tremendously, so I can deal with ordinary 8 desolate exalted, but the Su family is the top family of the Jinling Great Base, and their strength should not be underestimated. Although there's only 1 8 desolate venerable on the surface, there might be some hidden backhand. Trummer understood it well. These great families were able to remain standing because of their deep heritage, with a number of undercurrents that ordinary martial artists could not imagine. If you want to eradicate them completely and eliminate their roots, you need to be fully prepared. There can be no negligence or sleight of hand. With my current strength, I'm afraid that if I were to go over and take revenge, it would still be a bit precarious. Might as well cultivate for a period of time. It just so happens that I still have a period of rapid growth of strength and high speed. Take advantage of this time to raise my strength by 1 level again, to ensure that it is 10 times more stable. Chuemo thought darkly in his heart subsequently. He then returned to the cultivation room, drank a portion of the ferocious beast's blood, executed the green cloud yuan power forging secret art, and began to cultivate. Su family, I'll let you live a few more days. Just as Chuemo was cultivating. The other side. At this time, Su Jin had also returned to the Su mansion and had reported the news of the Su family's martial artists being completely wiped out. Fruity. Upon learning of this matter, the entire Su clan set off shockwaves. Although their Su family had a large number of clansmen, with the direct line and side branches adding up to a very large number, these 100 or so people were the core elite of the Su family's martial arts practitioners, and now that they had all folded out, it could be considered a heavy blow to the Su family. So the many elders immediately found their way to Su Lang's head. Inside the hall, the crowd of elders were enraged. Did you guys come over here this time with something in mind? Su Lang looked at the crowd and said softly. Words. A few elders who couldn't hold back their emotions immediately stood up and said, Family Master, my Su family has lost all of its hundreds of martial artists above the peak of the Sovereign Master. This is something that has never happened in decades. There must be something fishy in it. I think that it should be thoroughly investigated to the end. Right. It must be investigated thoroughly. If we don't investigate strictly, what face will my Su family have to stand within the Jinling Great Base? They said with emotion of the Su clan martial artists who participated in the secret realm. Several of them were their grandchildren, but now they were all folded inside. How can this make them sit still? Just. Hearing this, Su Lang, however, secretly shook his head. This time, the Su clan's martial artists entered the secret territory to explore that one relic, and if they really wanted to investigate thoroughly, this relic would definitely not be able to be hidden. So it can't be checked at all. The Su family's loss of these hundreds of martial artists could only be broken and swallowed. Thinking of this, Su Lang spoke. Now that the family has lost so many elite martial artists, and won't be able to recover for at least a few decades, it can be expected that the future is bound to be the time when the family is at its weakest. Especially those forces that don't deal with our Su family will surely take advantage of the great loss of the family's strength to come looking for trouble, treating us as a piece of fat meat. A thorough investigation at this time will only make us enemies for nothing. Hear that? The emotions of the crowd of elders were also slightly calmed. It's not that they don't understand this, it's just that they are not willing to do it after all. Since the Su family became the 4 great families of the Jinling Great Base, how had it ever suffered such a loss? I know that all of you are unwilling in your hearts, but this is the most difficult time for the family, so I still need you to be more understanding. Only by working together can we get through this together. Of course. Su Lang turned his words around and said with a smile, difficult times won't take long, and my Su family's situation will be rectified. Hear that? The crowd of elders were all a bit curious and asked. Only Su Lang didn't say the reason and just asked them to wait patiently for a month. A month wasn't too long, so these elders thought about it and agreed. When they left, Su Lang took a long breath. At this point, second elder Su Zhen, however, walked in again, and just as he came in, he directly said, "Family head, I think the loss of hundreds of martial artists in the family is absolutely unrelated to that Chu Mo." Hearing this, Su Lang's face stared and said, "Why do you say that?" Su Tian and the others entered the mysterious realm this time. There were just two missions, one was to behead Chu Mo and the other was to explore the ruins, and now Chu Mo is still alive. Moreover, I noticed that when he came out this time, he had also become a Jin General Realm martial artist. You have to know that before he entered the secret realm, he was still only a Zhongshe martial artist, and even when he killed Su Mo in the first place, he was only a martial artist. Xiao Jin said, "Are you sure?" Su Lang said in a condensed voice. "I can be sure." Su Zhen nodded and said solemnly, "He should have only just broken through, and he still carries the remnants of his aura with him, so I'm certain that it's definitely the aura of a Jin general level." Word Su Lang's face suddenly clouded over. He had only just broken through the Zone Master before entering the secret realm, and as a result, he had reached the Jin general realm only 2 months after entering the secret realm. No one could do such a cultivation speed. Unless one gets an amazing chance. It also means that it's very likely that Su Tian and the others were killed by Chu Mo. Even if Chu Mo didn't do it, it's still inextricably linked to him. And the chance in that relic might have been obtained by Chu Mo. Think about it. Su Lang's heart then flashed with killing intent. That secret realm is a matter of great importance, and must not be known to outsiders. In that case, this Chu Mo must not be kept. Su Zhen, you immediately send someone to monitor Chu Mo and strictly check his movements, to ensure that this person is unable to escape from the base. Wait until a month later, and I will personally make a move to kill him. Su Lang said in a loud voice, "Why a month later?" Su Zhen was a bit anxious and said, "This kind of matter should not be delayed, it's best to do it immediately." Of course I know it's better to be early than late, except that. Su Lang slightly released a wisp of breath from his body and said with a flourish, "I have already reached the peak of Jin General and touched the threshold of the higher level. Within a month, I will be able to step into the realm of the 8 Wastelands Exalted One." Words. Su Zhen was instantly surprised and delighted. This is a great thing. In that case, let Chu Mo live for 2 more days. Chapter 125 The Power of 10,000 Elephants, White Weasel Breaking Shell. For the next period of time, the entire Jinling Big Base was calm. This surprised all the forces in the base. According to their conception, they had thought that the Su family would definitely not stop after suffering such a big loss, and the next step within the base was definitely going to be uneventful. Who knew that instead of making any trouble, the Su family had kept an uncharacteristically low profile? It puzzled them. In the end, they could only secretly guess that perhaps the Su family's losses this time were so great that it made them a little short of breath. The Su family actually didn't come after me? Trummer felt very strange. But that didn't make him relax in any way, instead he was also more cautious. With the Su family's nature, they would never let him off so easily, but now that they hadn't made any moves, they must be brewing a bigger plan. But no matter what, it's still most important to raise your strength up. 20 days had passed since his return. During this period of time, relying on the green cloud yuan power forging mysterious art, along with the assistance of various heavenly materials and ferocious beast blood, allowed Chu Mo to soar at a cultivation rate that increased by more than 50 elephant power every day. So far, his physical strength had already broken through 10,000 elephant power. But after spending these 20 days in a period of high-speed growth, Chu Mo's strength growth rate gradually slowed down and returned to a period of steady growth, still probably growing close to 30 elephants of strength every day. Such speed is also appalling. If it gets out, it was bound to make many martial artists horrified. Now that my fleshly power has broken through 10,000 elephants, equal to the strength of a mid-Jin general, if I add the fact that I can strike a 200 times increase after breaking the first fleshly extreme realm, my strength will reach 2 million elephants of power, which is equivalent to the power of the 8 wastelands venerable level. And even ordinary 8 wastelands venerable have already been unable to compare to me. In addition, I possess a top-notch wind attribute talent, and my speed is no better than that of an 8 desolate exalted level martial artist, if you think about it. It's just that the defense is still a bit weak. Chumo's earth attribute talent was currently only medium, and the increase in defense it brought about made his body not yet comparable to that of an 8 desolate exalt, but he had a higher wood attribute talent, capable of healing and recovery, and even if he was injured, he could rely on his yuan power to recover quickly, sort of barely making up for the weakness in defense, and most importantly, compared to an ordinary 8 desolate exalt, Chumo also had the additional higher spatial talent, which made him invincible as long as he wouldn't be instantly killed by his enemies. This also means, nowadays, I already possess the strength to suppress ordinary 8 desolate exalted ones, and even if I were to face senior 8 desolate exalted ones, I would still have the power to fight. Chummer said softly. There was a bright color in his eyes when he said this. Next, we'll cultivate martial arts, striving to perfect the shadowless illusionary steps and the Shantian battling slash. Also, when the gathering technique is refreshed, go out and look for a higher level earth attribute talent to make up for the lack of defense. When Chumo made up his mind, he prepared to continue his seclusion. Master, this egg you told me to watch over has moved. At that moment, Dale's voice suddenly came from his head. Chumo was first stunned, then he realized that it was the broken ferret egg. Is it hard to break the shell? Thinking like this, Chumo wiped his palm on his spirit beast pouch. Subsequently, the ferocious beast egg, which was the size of a head, was already lying on the palm of Chumo's hand, and at that moment, it was slightly trembling, as if it was beating like a heart, just as if it was constantly gulping down the yuan qi of the heaven and earth. With each gulp, a faint glow could be seen emanating from the eggshell with the naked eye, and it spread and contracted throughout the entire quiet room, as if it were a bright light. Sure enough, it's coming out. It'll only take an hour at the most. Chummer surmised fruity. An hour later, Chumo felt a violent tremor coming steeply from the eggshell, followed by a subtle tremor coming from the air, and all the surroundings of the eggshell began to distort slightly. Seeing this scene, Chumo couldn't help but light up before his eyes. To be able to invisibly affect the surrounding space even before it is fully born, it looks like the qualifications should be good. Just as Chumo was thinking like this. Pop! Accompanied by a crisp cracking sound, a crack appeared on the eggshell, and then the cracks became more and more numerous, eventually gradually spreading all over the eggshell. 5 minutes later, the eggshell completely broke open with an opening, revealing a tiny head coming out. To be a peak level 2 ferocious beast right after birth, the qualifications are really not low. Plus it possesses a spatial talent, it should become a very powerful ferocious beast in the future. Feeling the aura from the ferret, Chumo nodded slightly, looking satisfied, but he did not intend to adopt it as his beast pet. Now he had 3 ferocious beasts. A treasure-seeking bird, a golden-winged roc, and a 3-legged golden crow. They each have their own strengths and all have different uses. It's all very helpful to Trummer. And although the Skybreaker White Weasel possessed a spatial talent that was very helpful to other martial artists, it was like chicken ribs to Chumo. As for its spatial talent and growth cap, although it was not bad, maybe there was a chance to become a 6th-level ferocious beast in the future. And even if it was properly cultivated, it was not without the possibility of going further. However, compared to the golden-winged roc and the 3-legged golden crow, it was a bit less impressive. So, all things considered, the broken white weasel didn't make any sense to Chummer. Xiawei doesn't have a beast pet right now, giving the Skybreaker white weasel to her should be most appropriate. Chumo thought darkly. Thus, he immediately woke up Qin Shiwei, who was still cultivating, and had her come to the living room. What's wrong? Qin Shiwei walked over with some uncertainty and asked suspiciously. At this moment, she was already at the peak of the martial master realm as she was emitting a powerful aura. During this time, she was brewing her essence, preparing to subdue the ice crystals with the spirit-drawing technique once her state had reached its peak, forging a flawless Dao foundation and stepping into the Zongshe realm. This is a freshly hatched Hollowbreaker white weasel. While it hasn't opened its eyes, you immediately drop your blood to recognize it as your master. Chimo said, pointing at the broken white ferret. Broken white weasel? Chen Shi was slightly shocked, with an incredulous look on his face. She had naturally heard of the reputation of the broken white weasel. Mastering the spatial talent, their strength was terrifying, and once ordinary martial artists encountered them in the wild, they often didn't end up well. Such a good ferocious beast, why don't you contract it? Qin Shiwei asked, curiously. I already have 3 beast pets, I don't need it. Hurry up and drop blood to recognize the master, before it opens its eyes. Chummer said. Words. Qin Shiwei then didn't say anything more before directly cutting open his own finger, forcing out a drop of essence blood and pointing it on the tiny head of the broken white ferret. The ferret was still only a second-grade ferocious beast and had only just been born. Its will was still very weak, it didn't have much idea of resistance at all, and it was very smoothly recovered by Qin Shiwei as a beast pet when the process is complete. The ferret then opened his eyes and looked around, and when he saw Qin Shiwei, he immediately walked over with a hobbling gait and tugged on Qin Shiwei's arm, a look of dependence on his face. The ferret was white as snow, with a small head, 2 tiny ears on its head, a red nose, and long whiskers on its cheeks like a cat's, making it look very well behaved. So cute! Qin Shiwei blushed slightly as she held the ferret in her arms and stroked its head, saying joyfully. Like it? Chumhum flashed a smile. Still, he took a closer look at the ferret's stomach as he spoke. It's female. That's what completely put it down. Letting Qin Shiwei and the ferret cultivate their relationship, he continued his seclusion and started cultivating. However, before he closed the door, he sent a message to Imo Shanshan, asking the martial artists of the Merchant Alliance to help keep an eye out for any powerful Earth attribute beasts, and to come and tell him if they found any traces. Imo Shanshan naturally agreed in one breath. If I can encounter a rank 6 Earth attribute beast, I might be able to collect a transcendent rank Earth attribute talent, and at that time, even if I stand still, an ordinary 8 desolate exalted can't even injure me, right? Chimo thought with great anticipation. The Su family. For nearly a month now, the Su family has been contracting their strength. The martial artists in the family were even shouted back, strictly ordered not to go out during this period of time, and even more so, not to cause trouble without authorization. This was incomprehensible to many of the domineering and habitual Su clan martial artists, so much so, that there were some not-so-subtle words about the family head, Su Lang, who had made this order. However, all the dissatisfaction and microaggressions are all gone today. Because just this morning, a very majestic energy suddenly swept out from the depths of the Su clan, causing many Su clan martial artists to be in disbelief. Even the Su clan's oldest ancestor was startled and came out of his seclusion. But then he learned the specifics. Family head Su Lang had broken through from the peak level of the 4 squares in general and smoothly stepped into the 8 desolate exalted realm. When this news came out, the entire Su family rejoiced. Nowadays, within the entire Jinling Great Base, such as the 4 great clans, all of them had only 1 8 desolate exalted sitting in the town, and all of them were at the early stage of the exalted stage. Therefore the strength of each family did not differ much, and the difference was only in the number of 4-sided town generals. The reason why the Jade Merchant Alliance was able to press the 4 great clans head-on, and had a vaguely transcendent status within the base, was because the Merchant Alliance had an 8 desolate exalted mid-stage ancestor sitting at the helm, and was the strongest existence in the entire Jinling Great Base. But nowadays, family head Su Lang also broke through to become an 8 desolate venerable. This also meant that the Su clan had 2 exalted masters. In a single leap, he became the head of the 4 great families, and even possessed the qualifications to arm wrestle with the Jade Merchant Alliance. How could this not excite the martial artists within the clan? Congratulations, family master, congratulations, family master, for successfully entering the 8 desolate exalted realm. Su Jin was even the first to come to Su Lang to congratulate him. At the same time, he asked Su Lang when he would do it. "Let me stabilize my realm first. 3 days later, I will personally strike and kill Chu Mo," Su Lang said in a spirited manner. Chapter 126 Su Lang strikes, slaying the 8 desolate venerable one with a single slash. "Chu Mo, this time you will definitely die." Having received Su Lang's promise, Su Jin's heart was so happy that he couldn't even help but laugh out loud. Actually, by the way, Su Jin also didn't know that his son had died in Chu Mo's hands, and shouldn't have been born with such a great grudge against Chu Mo, but because his own son, Su Tian, disappeared in the crack, and his life and death are still unknown, and he doesn't even know who the murderer is, which makes Su Jin feel that his son's death was completely in vain. And Trummer, as the only person connected to his son's death, whether he was the killer or not, Su Jin wanted Chu Mo to die. Only then did he feel he had avenged his son's death. Because of this, it was only then that Su Jin would try to find a way to ask family head Su Lang to make a move to kill Chu Mo. The family master has now become an 8 desolate exalted one, his strength has been substantially increased, and martial artists under the 8 desolate exalted one don't have the slightest possibility of resisting. It seems like Chu Mo doesn't have any chance of surviving this time. "Little Sky, my father has kind of avenged you," Seo Jin muttered. The 8 wastelands exalted one, there was a world of difference in strength compared to the 4 directions town general. Even a martial artist who was at the beginning of the exalted realm would be able to instantly kill countless 4 directions town generals in seconds. Chu Mo might be extremely talented, and might even have obtained the chance of the secret realm ruins, but there was no way he could beat Su Lang. So in his mind he thought. The moment Su Lang decided to strike, Chu Mo was already a dead man 3 days later. Su Lang set off directly from the Su mansion and flew towards the villa area where Chu Mo was. He didn't hide his figure, he didn't even cover his own aura, he just appeared over the base in a big way, as a way to announce that he, Su Lang, had become a new 8 desolate venerable. Boom! Majestic aura swept in all directions, as the aura was so terrifying that it caused a hurricane to rise within the base. The base's great formation was all flooded with a layer of ripples as a result, appearing somewhat unstable. It is? A new 8 wastelands venerable? Feel the breath. Inside the base, all the forces bet their gazes over. Upon taking a good look at the figure in midair with a majestic aura and terrifying strength, these people instantly had different expressions on their faces. Su Lang has actually entered the 8 desolate exalted realm? How is this possible? The Su family now possesses 2 exalted ones. No wonder the Su family had previously kept an uncharacteristically low profile, so they were holding back big moves. It seems that the large base of Jinling is about to go haywire. What a way to go! They both frowned, feeling only a little tricky. Any of the 8 wastelands exalted masters was powerful enough to influence the future direction of the entire base. And now that 2 Zunis had appeared in the Su family, it would inevitably lead to the various forces within the base, all of which would have to redistribute their resources. This is a big deal. It looks like we need to confer with the family immediately. Many forces had withdrawn their gazes and summoned the men under their command to discuss countermeasures. Sure. There were others who watched Su Lang appear in midair, guessing what he was trying to do this time. Look at the direction he's going, could it be? He's gone to find Chummer. I didn't expect that the first thing Su Lang did after becoming an exalted one would be to behead Chu Mo to establish his authority. Chumo is finished. If Su Lang hadn't yet become an exalted one, the Jade Merchant Alliance would still have the strength to protect him, but now that Su Lang has become an exalted one, if he insists on killing Chu Mo, it's unlikely that the Jade Merchant Alliance will be able to do anything about it. A heavenly pride has fallen like this. The great figures of many powers secretly shook their heads. Business Alliance side. Mo Shanshan was also the first to learn of this moment, and immediately begged her father with a pale face, Su Lang is going to kill Chu Mo, Dad, you should quickly go and ask the old ancestor to come out of the gate, or else Chumo will die. It's too late. Emo Yangon shook his head and said, the 8 desolate venerable masters are powerful, and there is a heavenly gulf gap with the 4 directions Jin will be. As long as Su Lang sees Chumo, he will be able to kill him in an instant. Even if I go to ask the old ancestor to come out of the gate right now, I'll still be completely too late in terms of time. Hateful. If I'm given another 2 months, I'll be able to step into the 8 desolate exalted, and I won't be able to watch the Su Lang run so wild then. He said so, however. After saying that, he still immediately turned around and went to ask the old ancestor to come out. As for Moxan, at this moment, he was looking at the distance, with a pale face, murmuring, Chu Moyo must survive. Hold on until the old ancestor comes out of the gate. Inside the villa, Chumo, who was in seclusion, suddenly felt an extremely powerful aura crushing down from high above. The aura was very unbridled and not the slightest bit restrained. It directly shattered all the surrounding houses, and even some of the ordinary martial artists and residents inside the houses were directly suppressed and died. Chumo, suffer death. A brilliant sound, descending from the sky, wrapped in a terrifying aura, killing towards Chumo. The villa he was in instantly collapsed. An 8 desolate venerable. Sensing this aura, Chumo directly rushed out of the villa and arrived in midair. As for Qin Shiwei, he had taken the Skybreaker White Weasel and the Sky Rock to the wilderness 2 days ago to practice, and was not at home, so he was not affected by the waves. At this moment, Chumo's face was gloomy as he looked into the distance at once. He saw that not far away stood a man whose entire body was shrouded in golden light. It's none other than Su Lang. No wonder your Su family hasn't made a move in the past month, so it's preparing for a breakthrough. Tremor came to a realization. Even if you become an 8 Wastelands venerable, what can you do? In front of him, it was still a death wish. The Su family. I haven't even gone to the door yet, how dare you take the initiative to come over and seek death? Both. Then let's take this opportunity to completely destroy the Su family in order to eliminate the roots. Infinite killing intent flowed from his heart. And that's when Su Lang had also seen Chumo in midair, coldly snorted and drank. Chumo, the mistake is that you shouldn't have messed with my Su family. Die. There's not the slightest bit of bullshit. After saying that, he directly then drew out a long sword and killed towards Chu Moonli to see a sharp sword chi cut through the void, looking very light and agile, but with a terrifying power. Even the void was vaguely distorted for it, shooting out towards Chumo's head. This was the Su clan's family martial skill, a set of silver-grade martial arts called the Pine Wind Sword Technique. As light as the wind, yet as strong as the pine. Su Lang was obviously quite pure in this set of sword techniques, and a sword thrust could not be described as subtle, especially when it was executed with his strength of the 8 desolate exalted level. The power was even more powerful and unparalleled. If an ordinary Jin General martial artist were to encounter one, even if they were at the peak level of Jin General, they simply wouldn't dare to swipe up the front. Can only hide. Even if he didn't have the wind attribute talent, he wouldn't even have time to dodge. Because this sword chi was too fast. So fast that it had just appeared and had arrived in front of Chumo in an instant. Seeing that Chumo was about to die, clank. A sound of a sword being drawn and sheathed suddenly rang out in midair. Chumo's figure was then seen, flickering steeply, forming a trail of residual shadows and instantly dodging this sword chi. Afterward, Chumo's figure flashed once more as he rushed towards Su Lang. After becoming a Jin General martial artist, Chumo's own speed was already extremely terrifying, and coupled with the increase brought about by the top wind attribute talent, it allowed his speed to reach an extremely terrifying point, which was difficult for even Senior 8 Desolate Exalted to match. Not to mention that Su Lang had only just been promoted to 8 Desolate Exalted, so it would be very difficult to pounce at all. No good. He blushed knowing that he had somewhat underestimated Chumo. He hurriedly operated the Yuan power in his Dantian and propped up a defense shield. Thick earth wall. Shasta. A thick, earth-colored wall appeared in front of Su Lang, protecting him. This was a bronze-level martial art that Su Lang had learned, and once it was performed, with his current strength, it was enough to defend against attacks from martial artists of the same realm. Plus, he also had the inferior earth attribute talent, and with the increase, it was enough to withstand the full force of a peak early stage 8 desolate exalted powerhouse. Su Lang was confident that even if Chu Mo was more powerful, he would never be able to break the thick earth wall. But... boom! In the next moment, Chu Mo's long knife chopped on the thick earth wall, an overbearing and terrifying knife chi was instantly released, and Su Lang's thick earth wall only resisted for a breath before collapsing with a loud bang subsequently. Chu Mo's long knife continued to chop towards Su Lang without decreasing its remaining momentum. Feeling the strong and unparalleled power, Su Lang's face changed greatly and he subconsciously swung his sword in defense. Ka-ching! The moment the swords collided, the long sword in his hand immediately issued an unbearable sound, and then even in the middle of his unbelievable gaze, steeply crumbled. How is this possible? Su Lang was horrified and looked at Chu Mo with a face full of incredulity. Chu Mo was only a Zhen general-level martial artist, so how was he able to exert such a strong strength? It even actually cut his sword off head-on. This is a fifth-order spirit weapon. He could hardly believe his eyes. And just then Chu Mo's blade chopped over once again. Su Lang still wanted to dodge, but he could not match Chu Mo's speed. Only to see Chu Mo running the shadowless phantom steps, his body transformed into a residual shadow, and he directly arrived in front of Su Lang, and then chopped down with a blade. No! Su Lang's face changed drastically, and he hastily put up his Yuan power shield. But it doesn't make any sense. Ka-ching! The shield couldn't even resist for an instant, and it directly shattered, and then the long blade directly landed on Su Lang's neck, cutting him down. You actually have the strength of an 8 desolate venerable. A look of disbelief appeared on Su Lang's face as he spat out this sentence with difficulty on his face. He even revealed remorse and despair at this moment. He had only just broken through the 8 desolate exalted, and before he could enjoy himself, he was already dead. If he had known that Chu Mo had the strength to be able to kill an exalted, he definitely wouldn't have come rashly. More to the point, Chu Mo was so strong that the family's oldest ancestor simply couldn't resist. This also means that the Su family is going to be finished. With this thought in mind, Su Lang's consciousness gradually dissipated, eventually losing all vitality, and his body fell to the ground without movement. An 8 Wastelands Venerable One died in full view of everyone. Chapter 127, Killing the Su Family, Wanting to Chop Up the Roots. Hiss. After the battle was over, a sudden sound of pouring cool air rang out from outside. Although the fight between Chu Mo and Su Lang was quick, it still managed to attract quite a few onlookers and attention. Originally, they thought that facing Su Lang's attack, Chu Mo would definitely have to die for sure, but who knew that the result was beyond their expectations. Su Lang, who has just been promoted to the realm of the 8 desolate venerable masters. Surprisingly, his body and head were separated under Chu Mo's knife. This is simply unthinkable. To know. Chu Mo was only at the realm of the 4 directions in general. The difference between the two can simply be described as a world of difference. Yet tremor. Yet, in front of them, with an unrivaled stance, he directly decimated a powerhouse of the 8 desolate exalted realm. Even if Su Lang had only just been promoted. But he was still an 8 desolate exalt after all. It was an existence that stood at the top of the great base of Jinling. Terrible. Such strength is truly terrifying. What level of strength has he reached? Everyone was filled with horror as they looked at Chu Mo in disbelief, a shocked look in their eyes, and just as the onlookers were still in shock. At this moment, Chu Mo looked at Su Lang's corpse with an uncontrollable killing intent in his heart. The Su family actually sent someone to kill me in public. Since this is the case, then let's take this opportunity to completely destroy the Su family. Thinking so, Chu Mo directly executed his body technique and headed in the direction of the Su mansion. Originally, he was still quite wary of the Su family. It was thought that such a top family was bound to have quite a few undercards, so one would definitely have to be a bit more careful when going forward to retaliate. But right now, the other party had already killed at the door. Where could Chu Mo still hold back? Not to mention this fight with Su Lang had also allowed Chu Mo to have a clear perception of the 8 desolate exalted level of martial artists. The 8 wastelands venerable one was indeed very strong. But it wasn't as strong as Chu Mo had imagined. Perhaps it was because Su Lang had only just been promoted, or perhaps it was because Su Lang didn't have any powerful special talents, and that was why he was easily beheaded. But it shows. The 1/8 desolate venerable that was still left in the Su family, although he had been promoted for several decades, it was thought that his strength was not so strong as to be exaggerated, otherwise, it would not have been possible for him to be suppressed by the Tsuyu Merchant Alliance. As for Chu Mo, nowadays, his physical strength alone had already reached the power of 10,000 elephants. Coupled with the 200 times increase, it was enough to reach 2 million elephants' power, and an ordinary 8 desolate exalted would not even be able to match his power. What's more, he also had a spatial talent that allowed him to instantly move or even cut out spatial blades, belonging to a powerful base card. Unless the opponent was strong enough to kill him in seconds, otherwise, Chu Mo was confident in fighting with him. And that means his current strength was almost invincible to the Jinling big base. Both. What's there to be afraid of then? What's he's doing? Look at the direction he went, it's the Su family? Could it be that Chu Mo is going to kill the Su family? Just as Chu Mo left with murderous intent, the martial artists from all sides of the onlookers also noticed Chu Mo's movements at this moment, and each of them revealed a shocked expression subsequently. They then took a breath of cold air. Something big is going to happen with today's big base of gold. Quickly. Immediately report the news to the old ancestor. Within the great base of Jinling, there's going to be a change in the sky. The martial artists of each family were quick to report the news. In the meantime, Chu Mo's body shape was like electricity, and he quickly arrived in front of the Su mansion's gate. Stop, this is the Su family, who are you? The 2 Su clan martial artists guarding the door, seeing Chu Mo's sudden arrival, chided out. But they hadn't finished their words. Noisy! Chu Mo casually punched out, and the 2 martial artists were instantly broken into pieces. With the terrifying force, even the courtyard wall and defense array of the Su mansion shattered with a loud bang. What man? Who dares to come to my Su family to cause trouble? Bold! Such a commotion immediately startled the many martial artists of the Su clan as well. One could only see a figure rushing over from all directions, each of them carrying the aura of a martial artist, and there was no lack of martial masters or even sovereign martial artists among them. After they saw Chu Mo, they directly struck out without saying a word. However, blazing fire mountain shaking fist. The transcendent level fire attribute talent operated, and Chu Mo's chi and blood mobilized as he took a step forward and thumped out a fist. The powerful fist force instantly swept out, directly smashing in midair. Boom boom boom. Accompanied by violent explosions, these charging Su clan martial artists did not even have the slightest power to resist, and they were all smashed into pieces, and the terrifying fist power still lingered, landing directly on Su Fu. The large Su mansion had instantly become a ruin. The earth, which was thousands of meters in circumference, was directly sunken. Looking at such power, the faces of those other Su clan martial artists who had managed to survive all changed. This is the strength of a town general or above. I'm Su Chong, the grand elder of the Su family. Who are you, and why have you come to my Su family to act recklessly? At this point, an old man who possessed the strength of a late Jin general quickly flew in, looked at Chu Mo, and said with a gloomy face. Hearing these words, Chu Mo said in a cold voice, "Your Su family really has a great deal of bravado. You've already sent people to kill at someone else's doorstep, but you don't even know the other party's appearance. Might as well tell you the truth, I'm Chu Mo, the person your Su family wants to kill. What? Hearing Chu Mo's words, Su Chong immediately stared roundly, his face filled with disbelief. Your chummer? He lost his voice and exclaimed out in shock, hasn't the family head already personally taken action to kill you, why are you still alive? This is of course, because Su Lang has already been killed by me. Chu Mo sneered, this is impossible. The family head is a powerhouse of the 8 desolate exalted level, how could he be killed by you? Su Chong simply couldn't believe it. What's impossible, if he can come and kill me, I can naturally kill him as well. Not only will Su Lang have to die, but the Su family will cease to exist today. Chu Mo said in a cold voice. Hearing Chu Mo's words, Su Chong's heart went cold. The family head went out today to behead Chu Mo, and everyone saw it. But now Chu Mo directly killed to the gate of their Su family, while the family head has not yet appeared. This undoubtedly represents that the family head has already suffered an untimely death. But a 4 directions town general decapitated an 8 desolate venerable? When this thought surfaced in Su Chong's mind, he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cool air. What kind of chance would this be, and what kind of talent would it take to do it? His mind trembled wildly. A wordless fear surfaced. And just then, he suddenly thought of when the family had mentioned that there was a relic in the little leaf-green sky mystic realm that concerned the rise of the family. Yes. My Su clan's martial artist must have been exploring that secret realm, and as a result, he lost his way into it, and was taken advantage of by this Chu Mo, thus being given a great opportunity by him. So much so that it was only in a short period of time that he was able to rise from the sovereign realm to the 4 directions town general. That's why, after becoming an 8 desolate exalted, the family head wanted to behead Chu Mo at the first opportunity, in order to snatch the opportunity back. Hateful. If I had known that today's ending would happen, when this son killed Su Mo, my Su clan should not have been able to care about the Jade Merchant Alliance and decisively killed him. Otherwise, how could it have ended up like this? It's come to this. What surfaced in Su Chong's heart was surprisingly not regretting having provoked Chu Mo, but rather that he had actually not decisively struck out and killed him previously. So much so that it actually left such a scourge. He must be killed. We can't give him time to continue growing. Thinking of this, a heavy killing intent arose in Su Chong's heart. Although Chu Mo already had the strength to be able to cut down the 8 desolate exalted realm right now, but for his Su family to be able to stand in the Jinling Great Base without falling and become one of the 4 great families, it naturally wasn't going to fall so easily. So Su Chong immediately spoke, Chu Mo, with your talent, if you escape today, perhaps my Su family will even face annihilation in the future. But today, you will die. The words fell. He directly shouted, all Jin general martial artists come forward and form a formation. Swish swish swish. Along with Su Chong's words fell more than 10 Jin general level martial artists then rushed in, forming a large formation and surrounding Chu Mo. Only to see that their strength was also rising rapidly under the connection of their breaths, and soon they had already reached the strength of the 8 desolate exalted realm. This is the Su family's bottom card. It was when the Su family's oldest ancestor was traveling outside and accidentally obtained a set of extremely skillful formations. Once a large formation was formed, it would allow the strength of the martial artist who formed the formation to be briefly boosted by at least one small realm, and at most, even across one realm. It's just that afterwards, it all comes at an extremely steep price. The light is the destruction of the foundation, and the heavy will even lead to a great loss of life and even the realm of the fall because of this. Since obtaining this formation, the Su family had yet to use it. But now that they were facing a strong enemy like Chu Mo, if they didn't leave him behind, the Su family would truly be destroyed. Kill. Without too many words. After the Su clan's martial artists had gotten a boost in strength, they began to unleash their strongest attacks on Chu Mo. Only to see erode or can trample the earth, or can tear the space of the terrifying move swept, although has not yet arrived in front of Chu Mo's body, but the overpowering killing intent and might has already let the heart and soul wildly trembling. Obviously these Sioux clan martial artists had put their lives on the line. And under such an attack, even a true 8 desolate exalted could only avoid the front for the time being. Perimeter. Many of the forces that were watching onlookers also secretly changed their faces when they saw the scene. Obviously, none of them had expected that the Sioux family would still have such an undercurrent. But then. They then had their gazes fall on Chumo's body. Obviously, they were curious to know that even though a heavenly pride such as Chumo was able to kill the 8 desolate exalted masters with the Jin general realm, he was still not a true 8 desolate exalted master after all. And at this moment, facing the desperate attack of more than 10 martial artists who were infinitely close to the level of the 8 desolate exalted masters, how would they respond? Thinking so, a look of curiosity appeared on their faces just. This color of exploration had only just surfaced on his face when it instantly solidified. Because. Trummer laughed. Under the gaze of their eyes, under such a mighty and overpowering attack. Chummer actually laughed indulgently. I thought that the Sioux family, one of the 4 great families, really only had a bunch of dirt dogs. Among the murmurs. Chumo's body suddenly erupted with infinite purple thunder light, sweeping out in an instant. The moment it appears above the ruins of the entire Sioux mansion, it instantly turned into a sea of thunder. Chapter 128 Sioux Clan Ancestors' Despair. Berserk thunder and lightning swept out, an arm-thick ray of lightning, with infinite destructive power, covering the surrounding area in a circle of several hundred meters. The moment. Up and down his body, Chumo's circumference had an infinite amount of thunder light surging, and even his eyes and hair were faintly flickering with thunder light. The entire person looked as if he was a burst of gaijin who controlled thunder. Die. Chumo's palm was clasped in midair in a false grip, and immediately, a thunder column was grasped in his palm, and then as if it was a spear, it was shot out by him. Boom! An ear-piercing thunderclap blasted out. A Sioux clan martial artist was steeply shot by the thunder pillar, his body immediately trembled as if he had suffered a heavenly calamity, and his body turned into powder in an instant. Boom! 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 Next, Chumo continuously held the thunder pillar in a false grip and threw it out again, and again it led to the death of one Sioux family martial artist at his hands. In the blink of an eye, more than half of them were already dead or wounded. On the other hand, those Sioux clan martial artists were unable to get close to Chumo because of the raging and spreading of the thunder, and could only be slaughtered in a one-sided manner. It can't go on like this. Sioux sect, the time to dedicate yourself to the family has come. Sioux roared heavily. The moment the words fell, a Jin general martial artist of the Sioux family then stepped forward, only to see that without the slightest hesitation, he directly took out a pill from his storage bag and swallowed it, and then saw that the aura on his body began to rise rapidly, and in the blink of an eye, he had already been upgraded to the level of a true 8 Wastelands Exalted. Go to hell. Sioux Men's eyes were red as he flew towards Chumo, his words carrying an endless sadness. This is the heavenly demon pill. When a martial artist eats an elixir, he or she is able to drastically increase his or her strength in a short period of time. However, the price was that it could only last for a very short period of time, and that the body would simply disintegrate after taking it. In other words, as long as one eats the heavenly demon pill, it is tantamount to death. Sioux Men didn't expect to be able to rely on the heavenly demon pill to defeat Chumo. His idea was to elevate to a true 8 desolate exalted, come in front of Chumo, and directly explode himself, blowing Chumo to death. At the very least, it's going to blow up into something serious. Give the family in exchange for a decapitation. Everyone had a look of anticipation on their faces, hoping to see Sioux Men get his hands on it. Just their intentions were going to fall through after all. Seeing Sioux Men rushing over with a face full of grimace, looking like he wanted to blow himself up, how could Chumo give him a chance? The chi and blood in his body worked crazily, his yuan chi stirred endlessly, and endless flames rose from his body. Thunder and fire spread, and the two fused with each other, actually making the power even more terrifying. A hot and destructive aura instantly filled the entire field. Right at this moment, Chu Mo blasted out with a fist and slammed straight into the charging Su-men rumble. Only a violent explosion could be heard, and a huge vortex of air waves appeared in the void, sweeping out in all directions, and everyone was blown back and forth in the gale, unable to stand still. The moment Su-men was struck by a punch, the entire person would not have the slightest room to react, and was directly shattered into pieces by the punch. And the remainder of the punch remained unabated, hitting the earth directly. It directly left behind a deep pit that was hundreds of feet in circumference and nearly 100 meters deep. Seeing such power, everyone's face changed. Especially Su Chong and the others. Their faces were miserable. Su-men had taken the heavenly demon pill, and his strength was already equal to that of a true 8 desolate exalted, but he couldn't even get close to Chu Mo, so how should he fight against him? Is the Su family really going to be destroyed today? All of the Su clan's martial artists had a look of despair on their faces. Escape. There's no hope for my Su family anymore. If we can survive, one is one, keep the seeds. Seo gave a big shout. He was then the first to turn and run away, very quickly. Trying to escape? None of the Su family's martial artists will escape today. Chimo let out a cold snort. With just a flash of his figure, he directly caught up with Su-men, and with a flash of his sword in his hand, Su Chong's body had already fallen from the sky. His figure then flashed one after another, and one Su clan martial artist after another died under Chu Mo's blade. Elder, help me. I don't want to die. Don't kill me, I beg for mercy. Ah. In a flash, a mournful wail resounded, carrying endless despair, resounding above the ruins. Far away. The martial artists from the various forces that had gathered to watch were all numb with shock as they saw the large Su family being slaughtered in a lopsided manner by Chu Mo. This is the Su family, one of the 4 great families. Standing within the large base of Jinling for nearly 100 years, the power is huge and the depth is incomparable. But what do they see today? Instead, the Su family was killed by a martial artist who came to their door and massacred them indiscriminately. The Su family's martial artists, on the other hand, didn't have the slightest bit of resistance. My God! Is this me going crazy, or is the world going crazy? It's unbelievable. Everyone was so mind-blown that they could hardly believe their eyes. Ruins. The tussle continues, and just then. Bold fanatic, how dare you kill my Su clan's martial artists, how dare you? With an explosive roar, immediately afterward, a silhouette swiftly came from the distance. Only to see the coming person body breath harsh, straight into the sky, even smoke and clouds are stirred for the scattered, people have not yet arrived, the harsh breath will have been scraped people's skin pain. An 8 desolate venerable. Chu Mo immediately sensed the other party's realm. Moreover, unlike Su Lang, who had just been promoted as an 8 desolate venerable, this 8 desolate venerable's breath was even thicker, and his strength was even more terrifying, obviously a senior venerable who had entered this realm for a long time. It should be that sitting ancestor of the Su clan who has come out of the gate. Chu Mo secretly gasped. Elder ancestor. It's the old ancestor who has come out of the gate, now we're saved. Old ancestor, save us, kill Chu Mo. I implore old ancestor to make a decision for us. The huge Su family has been destroyed in the hands of this man, even the family head Su Lang was killed by him. If you don't come out, my Su family will be destroyed today. Seeing this old man, some of the surviving Su clan martial practitioners revealed the look of having survived a robbery and fell to their knees, their faces full of grief as for this Su family ancestor. At this moment, listening to the words of the surrounding crowd, while looking at the original Su family completely in ruins, he was suddenly furious. How dare you massacre my Su family's children, you've simply eaten bear's heart and leopard's gall. Now immediately kneel down on the ground and apologize for your sins, if not, I will pull out your tendons and bones, so that you will not be able to beg for life or death. The old man roared in anger. The stance was also lofty and did not place Chu Mo in his eyes. While hearing this, Chu Mo was furious and laughed. The Su family's martial artist had already said that he had decapitated Su Lang, who was also at the 8 desolate Zunshi realm, but this Su family's old ancestor still put up such a high profile that he actually wanted him to cut himself to thank him for his crimes. It's just ridiculous. You're the Su clan's oldest ancestor? After waiting for you for so long, now you've finally come out. Die. Without the slightest bit of nonsense, Chu Mo directly made a blatant strike. Madaka. Only a sound of a sword being drawn and sheathed was heard abruptly, breaking into everyone's eardrums subsequently. A terrifying blade chi, wrapped with a terrifying sharpness that seemed to be able to cut through everything, formed a snowy pike that crushed towards the Su clan's old ancestor. Because the power was too great, so much so that even the void made an unbearable sound and seemed to shatter. Sculpture. The Su clan's old ancestor was filled with a cold smile. Although he had already learned that Su Lang had died at the hands of Chu Mo. However, as a senior 8 desolate exalted, he had always stood at the top of the Jinling Great Base, and considered all martial artists other than those below the 8 desolate exalted to be ants. Even a martial artist like Su Lang, who had first entered the 8 desolate exalted realm, was nothing more than a slightly larger mole cricket to him all the way. After all, he had already entered the 8 desolate exalted realm for decades, and his strength was not an existence that Su Lang could compare to at all if he was willing to do so. He could also completely expend some effort to decapitate Su Lang. So to him, although Chu Mo was able to decapitate Su Lang, it was nothing more than relying on his good talent or having obtained some means that could briefly increase his strength, which had killed the newly promoted Su Lang. But that doesn't make it so. Chu Mo possessed the qualifications to fight him. Sure. Having said that, he also knew the truth that a hawk fighting a rabbit also uses its full strength. Therefore, he also fully operated his chi and blood, and his yuan power then bulged wildly, and a fist blasted out, carrying an unstoppable will to suppress, and slammed over towards Chu Mo's saber chi. It was beneath his expectations. In the face of this all-out strike of his own, that shocking blade chi would surely crumble with it. And Chu Mo would be seriously injured by his blow. Just the smile on his face ended abruptly before it could surface. Because right at the moment when the saber chi and the fist shadow came into contact, the saber chi that should have crumbled was overwhelmingly powerful, instantly severing its fist shadow, and then the remaining momentum was not diminished, directly chopping down towards his body. This can't be. His face changed drastically, and he hurriedly tried to dodge. But the speed of the blade chi was too fast, so much so that he couldn't even have time to completely dodge it, rushing back, but his body was still injured by the blade chi. Pfft. Only a dull sound could be heard, and a bone-deep wound appeared on the Su clan's old ancestor's chest. Shit. A mere town general martial artist, how is it that his power can surpass mine? The Su clan's old ancestor was no longer as cloudy as he was earlier, and his face was filled with disbelief. And just as he was shocked, Chu Mo's blade chopped over once again. The Su clan's old ancestor didn't dare to fight back in a hard way and could only dodge in a hurry. But Chu Mo's speed was just too fast. No matter how much he dodged, he was able to quickly chop at his body. In the twinkling of an eye, it had already caused him to be seriously injured. At this moment, the Su clan's old ancestor finally couldn't hold back and shouted loudly, "Venerable Gut Song, save me." The honored one he was calling out from his mouth was an old ancestor of the Gu family. Because the two families were friendly, their two old ancestors were also very close, often cutting and discussing the Tao together. This time, it was difficult for him to support himself alone, so he wanted to call out to his friends to join him in fighting Chu Mo. Just what he didn't expect was this. A pale figure suddenly surfaced in the distant sky. It was none other than Gut Song, but he didn't pay any attention to the Su clan's old ancestor. Instead, he spoke directly to Chu Mo. "Guest Minister Chu, this matter has nothing to do with me." Having said that, he then left straight away. Gut Song, you. The Su clan's oldest ancestor's face turned blue. No matter what, he didn't expect Gut Song to actually give up on him. Could it be that in Gutsong's mind, even the two of them joining forces couldn't defeat a single Chumo in the district? A flash of despair flooded the Su clan's old ancestor's heart. Chapter 129, The Su family is destroyed. Three great families show their goodwill. I'll fight you. In despair, the Su clan's old ancestor's face was filled with grimace, wanting to fight Chumo for his life. He summoned up all of his chi, blood, and yuan power, while also casting the explosive secret art to make himself even more powerful, wanting to seriously injure Chumo in exchange for a possibility of surviving, but his idea, doomed to failure. Buzz. The 365 blade orifices up and down Chumo's circumference trembled in unison, and his body's chi, blood, and yuan power instantly boiled like a rolling torrent being boiled. It then surged out at the same time, converging in the meridians, before rushing into the right hand. In the meantime, many talents in full swing. It caused Chumo to instantly reach the limit of 200 times increase. Afterwards, a knife was slashed out. Shasta. Boundless blade chi suddenly surfaced, and then it surged towards the Su clan's ancestor like a howling wind. As this blade was swung out, half of the sky suddenly brightened, and the terrifying blade chi incinerated the air, as if even the canopy of the sky was stunned, and the piercing bright light filled the entire base. The Su clan's old ancestor could only feel the infinite blade intent rolling in, as if the sky was about to collapse, making him unable to resist at all. Pfft. It was accompanied by a dull sound. The Su clan's old ancestor in midair suddenly stagnated, the expression on his face abruptly froze, and his eyes were instantly widened. He looked at Chumo as if he wanted to say something, but nothing came out. Instead, he just stood there in midair, motionless. What's the old Su family doing? Why isn't he moving? This scene caused many onlookers to wonder and subconsciously murmur out loud. And just then, snort, snort, snort. Only heard a snorting sound as if a red-hot iron was put into the water, and before the entire crowd could react, the Su family's old ancestor's body suddenly trembled, and immediately afterward, blood wildly soared in his throat as if a river had opened up. The body even snorted and exploded, with dozens of bloody holes appearing. In the blink of an eye, it stained large swaths of his body red. The scene had immediately caused the pupils of many of the surrounding onlooker martial artists to shrink, and a shocking look appeared in their eyes. What the hell is this? What is this? Sword technique? The Su clan's old ancestor's face was ashen, his eyes glaring roundly as he looked at Chumo in front of him and said word by word. Xian Tian Bat Tu Chop. Chumo thought about it and still confessed truthfully. Xian Tian. Battling blade. Chopping. With great difficulty, he reached out his hand and pointed at Chumo, as if he still wanted to say something, but after opening his mouth, he only spat out a large mouthful of blood, and his arm trembled and eventually hung down helplessly. With a stagnant breath, the person fell directly from midair to the ground. Eyes round, looking up at the sun and the green sky. The sky is high and the clouds are light. The wind is light and the sun is warm. The sky had a great view, but at this moment, it felt so strange to the Su clan's oldest ancestor. It seemed as if he hadn't raised his head to look at the sky seriously for a long time. Blood was constantly being vomited out of his mouth. Now it was summer, obviously it was warm, but he only felt chilled all over, as if he hadn't started practicing yet as an hour, and he had accidentally fallen into the water in winter swimming. It was really cold. The blood flowed rapidly. The vitality is dissipating fast. A flash of past images appeared before his eyes: ambition, desire, planning. All pursuits. But these images quickly blurred, and eventually the light faded before his eyes. He knows. One is already dead in the water. At the moment before his immediate sight completely dissipated, out of the corner of his eye, he saw the broken ruins of the Su family, and then finally saw his own blood flowing on the ground. A small sigh. What a big dream. The voice was low and inaudible. He said, and then there was no more sound. But it has completely lost its vitality, so the body fell to the death of the road. Silence. Deadly silence. Everyone in the vicinity, whether it was the martial artists who were spectators of the major forces within the Jinling Grand Base or the surviving martial artists of the Su clan, all froze. Everyone was confused. I don't know how long it was before it was broken by a weak voice. The Su family's old ancestor is dead? A young martial artist, with a shocked look on his face, murmured. It was not until this voice rang out that the people around them woke up as if they were waking up from a big dream. A look of disbelief appeared on his face. The old ancestor who had entered the desolate venerable realm for decades, who had stood at the top of the entire Jinling Great Base, who was incredibly powerful in the hearts of the Su family martial artists, who could look down on the world and suppress all the turmoil, had actually died just like this? They looked at the corpse of the Su clan's oldest ancestor on the ground, and then looked at Chu Mo, who was standing in front of the corpse. The latter was slowly retracting his sword at the moment, in a leisurely manner. At that moment, they only felt a chill surging through their hearts, which caused them to momentarily stifle a shiver. A wordless fear spread through everyone's minds, sending chills down their backs. From this day forward, Chu Mo stood in place, looked around the entire field, stood with his arms folded, like an abyssal aura enveloping him, and said in a faint voice, "There will be no more Su family in the world." He didn't speak very loudly. But at this moment, in the ears of the crowd, it was like a thunderbolt from the ground, suddenly exploding. After a moment of silence, inside the base, there were suddenly several voices. The Gu family obeys the orders of Venerable Chu Mo. The Shin family obeys the orders of Venerable Chu Mo. The Zhou family obeys the orders of Venerable Chu Mo. The four great families, the three family heads other than the Su family, all spoke out at this moment, making their attitudes clear. Subsequently, they were seen opening their mouths and ordering their own martial artists to strike and join forces to eliminate the surviving martial artists of the Su clan. Great! I hope that after tomorrow, there will be no more Su clan martial artists within the Jinling Grand Base. Chu Mo nodded, and then he was about to turn around and leave, and just then, those surviving Su clan martial practitioners, only then did they come to their senses. Chu Mo, this was an attempt to cut down the number of people. I'll fight you. Kill him. If he doesn't die, we all die. He killed the elder ancestor and the family head, and killed so many people, he must have consumed a great deal of his vital energy, so we'll be able to kill him by swarming around him. Kill him and avenge old ancestor. Finally, some Su clan martial artists couldn't hold back. Only to see his eyes red and hissing loudly, he rushed towards Chu Mo. And when the other Su clan martial artists saw this, they all joined forces to kill after a moment's hesitation. They're all well aware of it. If they didn't kill Chu Mo at this moment, even if Chu Mo didn't do it again, none of them would survive. Because the other three of the four great families, in order to show their attitude of drawing a clear line with the Su family, and also to show goodwill to Chu Mo, would certainly be happy to be responsible for clearing their Su family. Instead of being strangled and captured by the three joint forces, it would be better to fight to the death and fight for a way to live. At the time of desperation, all of them attacked with anger, and the moment they struck, they were the strongest killing moves, wanting to completely suppress Chu Mo. However, bold Su clan, how dare you strike out at Venerable Chu Mo? Seek death. Gu Song, who was originally a close friend of the Su clan's oldest ancestor, was the first to react and immediately attacked with anger. Only to see him flip his palm and slap it down, and immediately a giant hand that covered the sky suppressed dozens of Su clan's martial artists, after being struck, had their body bones crumble and then explode, turning into meat cakes. And just at this time, the martial artists from the other clans had also rushed over. A brutal killing of the Su family's martial artists. Ah! Gu family, you betrayed my Su family and shall not die. Gu Song, I curse you to die horizontally in the wilderness. Don't kill me, my daughter is your Shin family's daughter-in-law, don't kill me. I beg for mercy, I will voluntarily give up the Sioux family's identity. Woohoo! In the face of the strangulation, each Sioux clan martial artist either screamed miserably or begged for mercy or cursed angrily, but often, just as they rang out, they instantly came to an abrupt end. Above the ruins of the entire Sioux family, only screams, explosions, hisses, and earth tremors could be heard in a continuous stream, and at that moment, Chumo had already left this place. Day 2. A shocking news then came from the entire Jinling Big Base. The Sioux family, one of the 4 great families, was exterminated. The entire family, all of them, including Sioux Lang, who had just been promoted to the level of 8 desolate exalted master, and the Sioux clan's oldest ancestor, who had been an exalted master for decades, were all dead. Everyone was dumbfounded by this news. This is the 8 Wastelands Venerable One. Each one of them was the mainstay of the human race, standing like a great mountain, the cornerstone of the human race's ability to settle down in such a chaotic world. In the eyes of martial artists and ordinary people alike, each of them had a high status and great strength, and could be called an inhuman existence. But today, and yet they lost 2 of them overnight. Every person who heard this news had waves of shock in their hearts, but that's not all. Immediately after that, another piece of news came in. The one who had beheaded the Sioux family's 2 8 desolate exalted masters was only a guest secretary of the Jade Merchant Alliance, and he had also crossed over to the realm of the 4 Squares in general, beheading the 2 exalted masters head-on. Even scarier. Afterwards, the other 3 heads of the 4 great families all showed their favor to Chumo in person, dispatching martial artists under their command to help encircle the Sioux family's martial artists. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air when this news came out. What does that mean? It showed that the other 3 great clans were also bowing down to Chumo. Thinking that he was at the top of his game and the 3 great clans couldn't resist, he went soft. Thinking about this, every single martial artist was completely numbed by shock, unable to speak. Jade Business Alliance. Mo Shanshan and Mo Yangon were also shocked for a long time after learning the news. That old man from the Sioux family, immersed in the 8 Wastelands exalted realm for decades, his strength is said to be only 1 step away from the middle stage of the 8 Wastelands exalted realm, and he is extremely strong, but I didn't expect that he would still be decapitated by Chumo. What a terrible talent. I really don't know just how far he can go in the future. After a long time, Mo Yangon came back to his senses and said with great emotion. As for Mo Shanshan, she didn't say anything. Instead, he silently walked to the window and looked at the scenery outside, thoughts racing through his mind. Chumo, your current strength has truly reached the point where I'm about to lose sight of it from afar. And I don't know that in this life I'll be able to. Read this. A sigh that no one could hear rang out from the bottom of his heart. Chapter 130, The Idea of Forming a Force. The 3rd day after the destruction of the Sioux family. The villa that was damaged by Sioux Lang had been completely restored by an unknown construction team, and the villa had been enlarged a lot and built more luxuriously. Chumo didn't ask many questions and lived in peace. At this time on the 3rd floor, in a quiet room, Gu Song, the old ancestor of the Gu family, was reporting to Chumo with a face full of respect about the aftermath. Venerable Chu, according to your orders, the entire Sioux family has been overthrown by my Gu family in conjunction with the Zhou and Shen families. All the Sioux family martial artists have been decapitated, and as for the ordinary people of the Sioux family, they've all been herded within the mines, and if there's no accidents, they won't be able to get out of the mines for the rest of their lives. At some point it started to rain, but it was very small. The patter of rain is continuous. Listening to Gu Song's words, Chumo's mind floated back to his feud with the Sioux family. In fact, the 2 sides had no grudges at the beginning, but it was because when he was still at the Luoyang base, he met the Sioux family's unicorn son Su Feng, and was forced by him at that time and had to kill him. Later, after he arrived at the Jinling Grand Base, he was beheaded again because he was provoked by Chumo. Spin. He was then regarded as a thorn in the side of the Sioux family and wanted to kill him. There is actually no excuse for what the Sioux family did after all. It was impossible for any major power to sit back and watch outsiders kill the martial artists under their command with impunity. Not to mention. And at that time, Chu Mo was still just a weak ant in the Su family's eyes. Weakness is the original sin. Just like the father and son of Zhou Qi and Zhou Qing in the beginning. Like the Su family, what they believed in was the strongest of the weak and strength was honored. Both. Chu Mo possessed the strength to overthrow the Su family, and it was only natural that he would do so. Granted, the means of exterminating a man's entire family is desperate. But if you don't get rid of the grass, it will grow again in the spring. This was a truth that Chu Mo had realized clearly when he was struggling in the post-apocalyptic world in his previous life. And in this world, there is no room for mercy. Read this. Chu Mo slowly nodded his head and said in a faint voice, "Well done." It's good that Venerable Chu is satisfied. Gutsong couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. He then took out another storage bag from his arms and said, "This is some resources and heavenly materials we seized from the ruins of the Su clan. Please have a look at it, Venerable Chu." Chu Mo took a look, and saw that the storage bag was a space with more than 100 cubic meters, which was filled with many precious martial arts resources, and at a cursory glance, it was worth more than 10 billion yuan stones. A fund divided by court, huge amount of money, no doubt. Just. Instead, Trummer frowned, "Is that all?" The Su family was one of the 4 great families of the Jinling Great Base, standing for hundreds of years without collapsing, so how could it be possible that it only had around $10 billion of resources? Seemingly hearing the displeasure in Chu Mo's words, Gutsong hurriedly said, "Don't misunderstand, Venerable Chu, we wouldn't dare to keep it private. The reason why only these cultivation resources were found is actually because all the major powers basically hold secret realms of their own, so many treasures are kept in the secret realms. Generally speaking, this kind of secret realm can only be opened by the core children of the major powers, but now that the Su family has been wiped out in full, we can't find out where the secret realm is, so we can only find these." Listening to Gutsong's explanation, Chu Mo then realized that he had misunderstood Gutsong. After the two of them chatted for a while longer, Chu Mo intended to send the guests off to continue their cultivation, but when he saw Gutsong hesitating, as if there was still something he wanted to say, he couldn't help but frown and ask, "Why, is there something else?" "There is indeed one more thing that I would like to ask Venerable Chu to decide," Gutsong said with slight hesitation. After the Su family was destroyed, the many resources and stores that were originally held by them were also left vacant, but I don't know what Venerable Chu intends to do with them. There was something tentative in the words. "Hear this." Chu Mo revealed a look of contemplation on his face. Fingers also tapped unconsciously on the armrests of the seat, making a rhythmic sound. Prior to this, the entire Jinling Grand Base was in the hands of the 4 great families and the Jade Merchant Alliance as well as the Formation Masters Association, respectively. Among them, the Jade Merchant Alliance was the most financially powerful and top-notch, but the Merchant Alliance was not involved in the specific affairs within the base, and only specialized in doing business. The Formation Masters Association, on the other hand, was beyond the pale and didn't care about any mundane matters. As a result, all the big and small matters within the base are controlled by the 4 big families, with their power spreading to almost every aspect of the base. And now that the Su family had been destroyed, all those resources and businesses that they had originally managed had been left vacant. This is a very large property of the one interest divided by pavilion, enough to make anyone's heart sing. Just. Chu Mo hadn't made a statement yet, so the 3 great clans naturally didn't dare to reach out indiscriminately. And this Gutsong came over this time, thinking that he was representing the 3 great clans to test his thoughts. Thinking so. Chu Mo slowly opened his mouth and said, "The annihilation of the Su family, each family is also considered to be out of a lot of force. The idea is that the business operation thing Chu I also do not understand, so the Su family's resources and stores will be taken out of the discounted price sold out. You 3 big families and Formation Masters Association as well as the Quijade Business Alliance have the qualified to buy. As for this other half of the property, I will personally take control of it, and the cooperation with the families will be business as usual. What does Venerable Gutsong think? Hear that. A flash of disbelief appeared in Gutsong's eyes, and he subconsciously asked, is this Venerable Chu's words true? Naturally. Chummer nodded. Many thanks, Venerable Chu. Gutsong's eyes instantly revealed a flash of delight. Even though Chu Mo was talking about selling half of the Su family's resources, they still needed to pay a price in order to purchase them, but many resources, just to be able to obtain the qualification to purchase them, already accounted for a great benefit. For example, in the past, those Yuan stone veins and spiritual spring Yuan liquid owned by the Su family, these basically belonged to a carrot. You can't occupy it when others do. And if you can buy it, that's one more avenue for continued profitable development. The benefits are self-evident. Gutsong could imagine. If they waited for this news to be released, I'm afraid that even the Formation Artist Association, which has always been supreme, would be unable to resist coming down to compete. A bit of small talk ensued. Only then did Gutsong offer his farewells and left cheerfully. When it left, Chu Mo's face also let out a long sigh of relief. Selling the Su family's resources and stores at a discounted price seemed like Chu Mo was at a loss, but in reality, in Chu Mo's opinion, it was still him earning. The Su family's business is too big. It would take too much time for him to try to occupy them all. Instead of doing that, it would be better to sell some of these more troublesome businesses at a discount. One to come. He could quickly harvest some precious martial arts resources for his cultivation. Two to come. It was also an opportunity to make friends with the major powers. Although his strength already stood at the top of the Jinling Great Base, martial arts cultivation could not be done by himself alone. The more friends you have, the better. The fewer enemies you have, the better. If you make yourself an enemy of the world, you can't go on like this for long. As for leaving half the business behind, it was Chu Mo who also wanted to use this as a foundation to form a force of his own. As his strength grew higher and higher, it was impossible to do everything himself, needed to have some henchmen to help him with chores and inquiries. For example, if he wanted to know which place had the ferocious beasts he needed, he could send someone to inquire about it, so that he wouldn't have to keep bothering the Jade Merchant Alliance. After all, the Jade Merchant Alliance was not his own power after all. Troubling them all the time to help inquire about specific ferocious beasts also tends to make people suspicious. But with your own forces, there is no such risk. During the evening meal, Chu Mo and Qin Shiwei brought up the idea that he was preparing to form a force. This was echoed by Qin Shiwei. It's just that, have you thought about what you should call this force? Qin Shiwei asked, curiously. As soon as those words came out, Chu Mo revealed a look of contemplation. He really hasn't figured out what to call it yet, but he thought about how he had formed this force mainly to help him inquire about information and handle some chores, so an idea quickly came to his mind and he blurted out, let's call it the Heavenly Chance Pavilion. To see into the heavens and to know the things of the world. Holding the promise of Chumhum. Tenchi Kaku? Chen Shiwei murmured, also feeling good. So the name was settled. But forming a power is not that simple. Need to find an area to be used as the headquarters of Tianji-gu, but also set up an internal constitution as well as a system of rewards and punishments. Therefore, in the following time, Chu Mo searched for a suitable area within the base to use as the headquarters of the Heavenly Pavilion, and after searching around, he was not satisfied. In the end, Chu Mo still decided to rebuild the headquarters of his forces on the ruins of the Su family's original ruins. For this reason, he deliberately contacted Gutsong. The latter, upon learning of this, immediately dispatched the Gu family's manpower and came to build it. After learning of Chu Mo's request, they then quickly pulled in a large amount of supplies. Soon, in only 5 days' time, a luxurious complex had risen from the ruins. Pavilions and pavilions, carved beams and painted buildings, the overall look of the ancient. Much to Chummer's satisfaction. Subsequently, then they started recruiting martial artists. According to Chumo's conception, a power that had just been established would definitely not have many martial artists joining it, and even if there were, they would all be a mixed bag of good and bad people. It was naturally impossible for Chumo to let these people join up. Therefore, he intended that even if the recruitment of martial artists was a bit slower, he absolutely could not allow these people of low quality and impure minds to enter the heavenly hall. So he did a double take. One of them was to recruit some casual martial artists. Even a lower strength is fine, but they should be of clean birth and upright mind. The second is to cultivate it yourself. The best time for martial artists to cultivate was 15 years old, so they could search for some 15-year-olds and cultivate them from scratch. The downside of this is the lengthy time it takes to cultivate. But the upside is that they are loyal and don't betray easily. And just as Chumo was getting ready and planning to release the news of recruiting martial artists, he suddenly received a message from Mo Shanshan. The Jade Merchant Alliance, outside of the Jinling Grand Base, had discovered an Earth-attributed level 6 medium fierce beast,